Before you dive into these 3 chilling accounts of unexplained disappearances, know this. 2 are masterfully crafted fiction, while 1 is drawn from documented police records, witness statements, and verifiable evidence. Your challenge is to determine which story actually happened. Pay attention to the details, the evidence left behind, and the inexplicable elements of each case. At the end, you'll be asked to decide which story is real, but be warned, the truth may be more disturbing than any fiction. The hiker's last transmission. Sarah Chin never meant to become a legend in the hiking community. Before her disappearance, she was known for her meticulous preparation and detailed trail journals, which had garnered a modest following on social media. A software engineer by trade, Sarah approached her solo hikes with the same analytical precision she brought to her code, documenting every detail from weather patterns to terrain changes. Her credentials were impeccable, certified in wilderness first aid, experienced in navigation, and a member of 3 different mountain rescue organizations. She had completed the Appalachian Trail, conquered Mount Kilimanjaro, and tracked through the Australian outback. Her Instagram feed showed a careful, methodical hiker who never took unnecessary risks. This made the circumstances of her disappearance all the more baffling. On July 15, 2018, Sarah began what should have been a routine 5-day section hike of the Pacific Crest Trail in Northern California. Her chosen route was well documented, with regular water sources and established campsites. She carried top-of-the-line gear, including a Garmin InReach satellite communicator and a backup emergency beacon. The first 2 days progressed exactly as planned. Sarah's sister Lisa received the scheduled evening check-ins, which included detailed coordinates and photos of notable landmarks. The weather was perfect, clear skies, temperatures in the mid-70s, with light winds and good visibility. Sarah's messages were upbeat, noting the exceptional wildflower blooms and a family of deer she had photographed. The 3rd day started normally. Sarah's morning check-in at 7:15 a.m. described her planned route through a section of old-growth forest. Her GPS coordinates matched her intended path. At 2:30 p.m., she sent a photo of her lunch spot near a small stream, along with a message about meeting 2 other hikers heading southbound. Those hikers, Tom and Maria Guzman, would later provide the last known witness account of Sarah. They described her as confident and cheerful, showing them a shortcut on their map and sharing some of her dried mango. They noted nothing unusual about her demeanor or the surrounding area. Everything changed during the evening check-in at 7:45 p.m. Lisa Chun provided investigators with a complete transcript of their final conversation. Sarah, hey Lise, making camp a bit early today. There's this beautiful clearing ahead that's perfect for stargazing. Lisa, sounds great. Weather's still good. Sarah, yeah, perfect actually. Almost too perfect. It's so still. Pause, that's strange. Lisa, what's strange? Sarah, Lisa, are you seeing this? Can you see what I'm seeing through the camera? Lisa, I don't have a video feed, Sarah. Just audio. What are you seeing? Sarah, breathing becomes audible. The air, it's moving wrong. Like it's folding? That's not possible. There's something in the clearing ahead. I've never seen anything like this. Lisa, reported hearing static interference. Sarah, breathing becomes rapid, oh God. It's watching me. Lisa, if you can hear me, I'm at coordinate marker. Transmission ends. Lisa immediately contacted emergency services. The initial search began within 2 hours, with helicopters equipped with thermal imaging arriving at Sarah's last known coordinates by midnight. What they found, or rather, what they didn't find, has become the subject of intense speculation. Sarah's campsite was intact, almost staged in its perfection. Her tent was properly pitched, her sleeping bag laid out inside. Her cooking equipment was set up, with a half-prepared meal of rehydrated pasta still in its container. Her satellite phone lay in the dirt nearby, fully functional with 89% battery remaining. The only indication that something was amiss was the circle of dead vegetation, 20 feet in diameter, centered on Sarah's empty hiking boots. Within this circle, every plant had been completely desiccated, appearing to have aged years in a matter of hours. Soil samples showed inexplicable changes in mineral composition, with some elements appearing in configurations that chemists described as theoretically impossible. 3 months later, the case took an even stranger turn. Travis McKenna, a geology graduate student conducting field research roughly 6 miles from Sarah's last known location, captured an unusual audio recording. He had set up equipment to monitor owl calls when his recordings picked up something else entirely. Sound analysis experts at Stanford University confirmed that buried within the recording was a human voice matching Sarah Chen's vocal patterns. The voice repeated the same phrase 57 times over 3 hours. "The air is moving wrong." The recording also contained unexplained acoustic anomalies that, according to Dr. Elena Rodriguez of the Stanford Physics Department, appear to violate our current understanding of how sound waves propagate through air. The circle of dead vegetation remains to this day, surrounded by warning signs and scientific equipment. Researchers have documented numerous equipment malfunctions within its perimeter. Compass needles spin randomly, electronic devices either fail or display impossible readings, and even mechanical watches stop working. Plants refuse to grow in the affected soil, and animals avoid the area entirely. Sarah Chen's body was never found. Her disappearance has spawned dozens of theories, ranging from government experiments gone wrong to interdimensional portals. The case remains open with the California State Police, listed as a suspicious missing persons case with unexplained environmental factors. Lisa Chen continues to maintain a website dedicated to finding her sister. Every night at 7:45 p.m., she still tries to call Sarah's satellite phone. It rings every time somewhere in the wilderness. No one ever answers. The elevator game. Marcus Rodriguez wasn't supposed to be in the dorm that Halloween night. As a sophomore at Riverside State University, he should have been at the massive campus party in the student center, the one he'd helped plan as part of the student activities committee. Instead, his roommate David Park found him in their shared room, surrounded by printouts, notebooks, and occult symbols drawn on index cards. "It has to be tonight," Marcus told him. "The convergence is perfect." What David didn't know then was that Marcus had spent the past 3 months obsessively researching an obscure ritual known as the elevator game. Originally documented on Korean forums in the early 2000s, the game supposedly provided instructions for using an elevator to access another dimension. Marcus had become fascinated with the ritual after discovering that several disappearances across Asia had been linked to attempted playings of the game. Dr. Sarah Hammond, a professor of folklore at Riverside State, would later share emails Marcus had sent her about his research. He had traced variations of the ritual across different cultures, finding similar patterns in elevator-related disappearances dating back to the 1970s. His final email to her, sent at 10:13 p.m. on October 31, 2019, read, "I've found the missing piece. The sequence isn't just numbers, it's a code. And tonight, the ambient electromagnetic frequencies are perfect for amplification." David agreed to film the attempt, more out of concern for his friend than belief in the ritual. His iPhone footage, now archived in the university's paranormal research collection, begins at 11:37 p.m. Marcus appears excited but focused as he explains the rules. The building must have at least 10 floors. You enter alone. Press the buttons in exact sequence, 426211051. Don't let anyone else in. When you reach the 5th floor, a woman might enter. Don't look at her. Don't speak to her. If you do everything right, when you reach the 10th floor, you'll step out into somewhere else. The security footage from the service elevator lobby shows Marcus and David arriving at 11:42 p.m. The building is eerily quiet. Most students are at the Halloween party. Marcus carries only his student ID and a small notebook. He's wearing a gray hoodie and black jeans, an outfit chosen specifically because, according to his research notes, neutral colors are less likely to attract attention from the other side. David's footage shows Marcus entering the elevator at 11:44 p.m. The first sequence proceeds normally, 4th floor, 2nd floor, 6th floor, 2nd floor. At the 10th floor, a maintenance level that students weren't supposed to access, the elevator hesitates before responding. The security camera in the hallway shows the elevator doors never opening, though the floor indicator lights suggest otherwise. At 11:47 p.m., the elevator descends to the 5th floor. This is where the footage becomes difficult to explain. The elevator lights flicker, creating a strobing effect that video analysts have been unable to filter out. Marcus turns toward the camera, his expression changing from excitement to confusion. "Do you hear that?" he asks. In the enhanced audio, beneath the normal elevator hum, analysts have isolated what they describe as a chorus of whispers in an unidentified language. The frequency patterns of these whispers don't match any known human speech patterns. The elevator stops between floors. Marcus looks up at the ceiling, his eyes widening. "They're here," he whispers. The lights go out completely for 3 seconds. When they return, Marcus is gone. The elevator doors had never opened. The security cameras in every hallway showed no sign of Marcus exiting. The elevator's maintenance logs, retrieved by university technicians, showed no mechanical malfunction. In fact, according to the logs, the elevator had never left the first floor. The investigation revealed several inexplicable details. The button for the 10th floor showed were patterns consistent with thousands of presses, despite the floor being restricted access. Electromagnetic readings in the elevator shaft were, according to engineering professor Dr. James Liu, off the charts, in patterns that shouldn't be possible with our current understanding of electromagnetism. In the weeks following Marcus's disappearance, multiple students reported strange occurrences in and around the service elevator. Some claimed to hear the elevator moving between floors late at night, stopping at the same sequence of numbers Marcus had used. Others reported hearing conversations in unknown languages coming from inside the shaft when the elevator was offline for maintenance. The most compelling evidence came during the elevator's decommissioning 3 months later. When maintenance crews dismantled the control panel, they found Marcus's student ID card wedged behind the circuit board. The card had aged dramatically, appearing weathered and brittle as if it had been exposed to extreme conditions for decades. More disturbing were the microscopic annotations found etched into the card's magnetic strip, strings of binary code that, when translated, repeated the same message. "The door opens both ways." University officials hired Kate Martinez, a forensic metallurgist, to examine the ID card. Her analysis revealed that the plastic had undergone impossible molecular changes. "The polymer structure shows aging patterns that would take centuries to occur naturally," she reported. "More concerning are the traces of elements we found embedded in the material, elements that don't exist on the periodic table." The university eventually sealed off the service elevator entirely after multiple technicians reported feeling watched while conducting maintenance. The official explanation cited mechanical issues, but internal emails obtained through Freedom of Information requests tell a different story. One facilities manager wrote, "The equipment isn't malfunctioning. It's receiving inputs from somewhere else." David Park dropped out of Riverside State the following semester. In his last known interview with campus police, he shared something he had initially held back. "Just before Marcus disappeared, I saw something in the elevator with him. It looked like a person, but wrong somehow. Like a human shape made out of static. I didn't report it because I thought my phone's screen was glitching. Now I'm not so sure." Marcus Rodriguez remains classified as a missing person. His notebooks, filled with complex mathematical formulas and diagrams of dimensional gateways, are now stored in the university's restricted archives. The last page of his final notebook contains a single sentence: "If you're reading this, I made it through. Don't try to follow." The underground explorer. James Mitchell loved the dark. As one of the Northeast's most respected urban explorers, he had spent countless hours documenting abandoned subway tunnels, forgotten military bunkers, and derelict industrial sites. His photographs, published in Urban Decay Quarterly and featured in several museum exhibitions, captured the haunting beauty of spaces the world had left behind. A former structural engineer turned professional photographer, James approached urban exploration with both technical precision and artistic sensitivity. His expertise made his disappearance even more puzzling. This was not someone who took unnecessary risks or ignored safety protocols. On February 13, 2016, James descended into the abandoned subway tunnels beneath Rochester, New York. The system, partially constructed in the 1920s but never fully completed, had become a legendary destination for urban explorers. James had explored these tunnels before, but this trip was different. He had received an anonymous tip about an unmapped section predating the subway's official construction. His equipment that day was meticulously chosen: a Canon 5D Mark III camera with multiple lenses, 3 different light sources, including military-grade chemical light sticks, a first aid kit, backup batteries, and emergency supplies. He also carried a new Zoom H6 digital recorder, planning to capture ambient sounds for a multimedia exhibition he was preparing for the Rochester Museum of Science. Following standard safety protocols, James left his detailed route plan with fellow explorer Mike Roberts. The plan included entry and exit points, expected timeline, and emergency procedures. He also carried a 2-way radio for communication with Mike, who remained above ground as his safety contact. At 9:15 a.m., James entered the tunnel system through a maintenance access point near the old East Main Street station. His initial radio checks came every 30 minutes, reporting normal progress and some promising photographs. The first sign of anything unusual came at 11:45 a.m. "Mike, you need to see this," James radioed. "I found something that doesn't make sense. There's a tunnel intersection ahead that's not on any of the maps. The construction style is different, older, maybe way older. The stonework. I've never seen anything like it." Mike advised caution, but James was already moving deeper into the unknown passage. His next radio transmission, at 12:15 p.m., described unusual acoustic properties in the new tunnel. "The echoes are wrong. Sound isn't behaving the way it should in here. I'm picking up voices, but that's impossible. These tunnels have been sealed for decades." At 12:35 p.m., James sent his last text message, "Found geometric patterns carved into walls. Predates subway construction. This could rewrite Rochester's history. Air feels strange. Recording everything." When James missed his 1 p.m. radio check, Mike immediately initiated emergency protocols. The Rochester Police Department's Confined Space Rescue Team entered the tunnels at 1:45 p.m. What they found, and what they didn't find, has become the subject of intense speculation. James's backpack was discovered 1.2 miles into the tunnel system, at a junction that didn't appear on any official maps. His camera contained dozens of photographs from that morning, ending with a series of increasingly blurry shots of what appeared to be a narrow tunnel with intricate geometric patterns carved into the walls. Archaeologists who later examined the photos were unable to match the patterns to any known historical style or period. The digital voice recorder, recovered near his backpack, contains several hours of audio. The final 40 minutes have been analyzed by multiple audio forensics teams. The recording begins normally, with James's footsteps and occasional commentary about tunnel features. Around the 30-minute mark, the audio quality begins to degrade, filled with what sound specialists at the University of Rochester described as impossible acoustic artifacts. The final 3 minutes of the recording have been the subject of particular scrutiny. James can be heard walking, his breathing steady, when he suddenly stops. "The carvings, they're changing when I'm not looking at them. That's impossible." His footsteps quicken, then stop again. "Wait, is someone there? Hello?" The recording captures rapid footsteps, then James's voice, clearly terrified, No, you're not real. You can't be." The recording ends with a sound that multiple audio analysis labs have been unable to identify or classify. Dr. Elena Rossi of the National Acoustic Laboratory described it as a frequency that shouldn't exist in our normal physical space. It's as if the sound is coming from somewhere else entirely. The search for James Mitchell became one of the largest underground search operations in Rochester's history. Teams equipped with thermal imaging cameras, ground-penetrating radar, and remote-controlled drones spent weeks exploring the tunnel system. They never found any trace of James beyond his abandoned equipment. The investigation revealed several disturbing anomalies. Every photograph James took of the geometric patterns, when viewed on different devices, showed slightly different configurations of the symbols. Digital forensics experts confirmed the image files hadn't been altered. Somehow, the same digital files displayed different patterns on different screens. The tunnel junction where James's equipment was found seemed to defy normal geometry. Survey teams reported their measurements of the space were inconsistent, with the dimensions somehow changing between visits. Multiple team members reported disorientation and unusual equipment malfunctions, with compasses spinning wildly and electronic devices either failing or displaying impossible readings. Most disturbing were the acoustic tests conducted in the tunnel. Sound engineers discovered that certain frequencies seemed to disappear entirely, while others created echoes that returned before the original sound was made, an effect that physics professor Dr. Mark Thompson described as suggesting a fundamental disruption in the normal flow of time. The tunnel section was eventually sealed with concrete after 3 search team members reported seeing what they described as shadows that moved against the light and experiencing severe spatial disorientation. One searcher was hospitalized after becoming convinced that the tunnel walls were breathing. James Mitchell's disappearance remains an open case with the Rochester Police Department. The official reports, heavily redacted before public release, contain a curious notation from the lead investigator. Consider the possibility that we're not looking for someone who is lost, but rather someone who found something they weren't supposed to find. The sealed tunnel has become the subject of numerous scientific studies, though researchers report persistent equipment failures and data corruption near the site. Urban explorers occasionally attempt to find other entrances to the unmapped section, but none have succeeded. Some claim to hear whispers and strange echoes near the sealed entrance, sounds that bear a striking resemblance to James's voice on his final recording. Perhaps most chilling is the detail discovered 2 years after James's disappearance. A routine data analysis of his recovered camera revealed metadata indicating that some of the photos were somehow timestamped 2 hours before he entered the tunnel system. As one investigator noted in his final report, either the camera's internal clock was malfunctioning, or time itself doesn't work quite right down there. Take a moment to consider each story carefully. Which do you believe is the true account? Is it Sarah Chun, the experienced hiker who vanished after witnessing something impossible in the California wilderness? Perhaps Marcus Rodriguez, the college student who disappeared while testing an obscure elevator ritual? Or could it be James Mitchell, the urban explorer who found something inexplicable beneath Rochester's streets? Each story contains elements that might make you question its authenticity. Each presents evidence that seems both compelling and impossible. Each features witnesses, documentation, and physical evidence that appears to defy our understanding of reality. The true story is that of James Mitchell, the urban explorer who vanished in the Rochester subway tunnels in 2016. While some narrative elements have been enhanced for storytelling purposes, the core facts remain documented in police records and news archives. James Mitchell did enter the Rochester subway tunnels on February 13, 2016. His equipment was found at a tunnel junction that didn't appear on official maps. His final photographs and audio recordings were recovered and analyzed. The strange acoustic properties of the tunnel were documented by multiple research teams. The section of tunnel was indeed sealed after several incidents during the search operation. The case remains open with the Rochester Police Department. The other 2 stories, while fictional, were crafted from elements of real-world disappearances and urban legends. Sarah Chen's story incorporates aspects of various national park disappearances and mysterious environmental phenomena. The elevator game builds upon a real urban legend that gained popularity in South Korea and Japan, combined with actual cases of elevator-related accidents and disappearances. What makes James Mitchell's true story so haunting is not just that he vanished, but that the evidence left behind suggests possibilities that challenge our understanding of reality. The inconsistent photographs, the temporal anomalies, the inexplicable acoustic properties, all of these are documented in official reports, yet none can be fully explained by conventional science. Perhaps that's why James's case continues to fascinate investigators and researchers. It represents something beyond a simple disappearance. It hints at aspects of our world that we still don't understand, at possibilities we're not yet ready to confront. As you consider these stories, remember, sometimes the truth doesn't need embellishment to be terrifying. Sometimes, as in James's case, reality itself provides the greatest mystery of all. The Rochester subway tunnels remain accessible to authorized researchers, though few stay long in the areas near where James disappeared. Those who do report a persistent feeling of being watched, of spaces that seem to shift when not directly observed, and of echoes that come from nowhere and lead to nothing. And occasionally, late at night, security guards at the sealed entrance report hearing sounds from beyond the concrete barrier, the clicking of a camera shutter, footsteps on stone, and what sounds like a voice saying, over and over, "I found something. Sleep well tonight." And maybe think twice before exploring any unmarked tunnels. You never know where they might really lead.